Hey, welcome everyone to chapter 4, part 2 of creative writing in a young or niche market. So we were talking about finding your characters. This is chapter 4 is finding your characters. And in the last segment, we covered the importance of people, readers or viewers, your audience basically, being intrigued enough by your characters that they then stop following you and they start following your characters. And the importance of that is characters can carry. This is why we have spin-offs, right? In movies. This is why we have spin-offs in TV and film. Is because the character that was created in a particular story or film or show was so engaging that that character can stand alone in their own show. So you find like a show starts, say, The Good Wife, right? So I'd ask The Good Wife. And then it spiraled off to, I think it was called The Good Fight, which then one of the main, let me not, because I hate those spoilers. But The Good Wife spiraled into The Good Fight, and there was a breakaway, and a few characters were taken into that show. Same thing happened with, I'm trying to remember what this one show, anyway, it's happened a lot. Chicago Medicine, Chicago PD, a lot of these shows start off as one thing and then they spiral, and then there is a breakaway and it goes into its own show. Friends became, Joey got his own spin-off show of that. So the reason that can happen, even for film sometimes, the reason that can happen is because the characters created are so dynamic that they don't even need the original structure that they were created in order for them to tell their own story. Now, this is what you really want to cultivate, whether you're writing for TV or film, but particularly if you're writing for books. The reason being that a lot of books these days are becoming serials for self-published authors. A lot of books are becoming serials. The reason for that is that you do not have to gain the trust of a reader over and over and over again for each new book that you dish out, because the reader is like, I'm not sure I'm going to like these characters. I really loved the characters in your first 2 books. I was not so sure about the characters in the 3rd book, but the characters, I don't know about the 4th book. Do I really want to take this journey again? What if I don't like the characters? However, if I know for sure, say for instance, in my case, where like now the second book, D for Darian, the second book in the Visa series, somebody knows that in the first book, V for Visa, they fell in love with Darian. Come the second book, they're not thinking, okay, but is a character that she creates going to be as enigmatic in the second book as it is in the first book? Because it's the same character, right? So that same character pulls you into the second book. So the 3rd book that we're going to have that's really coming out next year is called Art for Rain. Still the same 2 characters, main characters. So people already know, there's already a promise. If nothing else, I'm going to love the characters in this book. If nothing else, that is going to carry me, right? Which means that I don't have to find new readers because I have readers from book 1. Book 2 pulled in different readers. Book 3 is going to pull in different readers. But if I do my job right, the people who read book 1 and 2 are definitely going to want to read book 3. So you see, it's like you're building the audience and you're building the mass. You're not starting up fresh. Nothing wrong with standalone books, by the way. But what I'm saying is, if you do serials, the other way around, if you do characters that are so captivating that your audience goes with you, you can do serials. It makes your work so much easier. And there's something about, for me, honestly, when I look at a book on Amazon, I am more likely to pick a series than I am to pick a standalone. Just like I am more likely to watch a TV series these days than I am to watch a film. Because I love to stay with the people I know. I'm the kind of person who, I have very few friends. Though I am a very social person, but I have few friends, close friends, because it takes me a while to gain trust, right? And to settle in with somebody. So because that is my character, I feel I'm the same way with the stories that I read. Once I love these two characters, I don't want to be going off and finding new characters to read every single day. So I prefer the serials. I prefer following characters who I can be with. If I look at a series and I see it's got 7 books and I love the first book, this is me doing my little happy dance because I'm like, yes, I have 7 whole books to follow these characters in. Same as my TV shows. If I click onto a show and it's like 7 seasons long or 5 seasons long, which is so hard these days, right? Shows don't last that long. A lot of shows don't last that long. But if I click and I see that and I watch like the first 5 episodes, I'm giddy with excitement because I'm feeling I have this whole long journey to go with these people, and that makes me happy. Again, going back to the original point, the only way this works, the only way this happens is if your characters are engaging enough. Some might say write a brilliant story. And yes, you can write absolutely brilliant stories. But guess what? There are many stories that are very similar in the writing world today. Because I keep saying this, 8 million books on Amazon. How many shows are there on Netflix alone? Before we go into Apple TV or HBO or CBS or how many? There are many, right? It's not like back in the day where you would sit, if you're in Kenya, you would sit in front of KTN or NTV, and every day at 8, every week at 8 p.m. there's this one episode of, say, Boston Legal or Ally McBeal, and you're just excited and waiting for it. And then so you keep waiting. People don't do that anymore. We're not sitting around waiting for shows to come out weekly anymore. Even the traditional TV stations and broadcasters and producers, production companies are no longer shelling out, or they're moving more and more away from shelling out 1 episode a week, right? And when they do, then anyway, they would bundle them and you can still stream and watch the whole seasons upon seasons for them. And this is because there's so many stories out there. So these guys know that the minute like Netflix, they've done this brilliant thing, where they know the minute I click on and I watch 1 episode, I want to follow along. If you don't drag me along to follow you with your story and your characters, or rather with your story, I'm going to go and watch something else. By the time next week comes around and you're showing me, oh, this is episode 2, I've moved on to something else, right? So that's because story is, I want to say common. Story is very important. I keep saying story is king. But your characters make your story unique. And so if there was a better story being told elsewhere and better characters, most people are going to go with the characters because we watch things to identify, right? And this is the thing. Very few of us can identify with the stories we watch. Let's be realistic, right? I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I have never seen magic performed like, and light beams and fire coming out of somebody's head. I've never seen it, right? Why am I watching this thing that I've never seen? Apart from being intrigued by the tale that's being told, I watch it because I identify with the characters. I might not identify with Superman shooting laser beams out of his eye, but I do identify with a hero feeling not good enough. And how many times have we seen Superman feel not good enough? Many, right? Spider-Man, I identify with the angst of late teenagehood, early adulthood. How many of us don't? Once we've been there, we automatically identify with it. And even if we are younger and we're still heading there, we can see, we know people who are there. We know people who are there if we've not gotten there yet, or we can look back and see, we know people who are there once we've moved away from that stage, correct? So it's the things that we identify with. And this is why there are characters that keep on being reinvented over and over and over again by Hollywood, by Europe, by over and over and over again. The same story, the story of the superhero. There's so many of them right now. But why are they the ones that stand out? Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. Why are these the characters that stand out? Amongst many others, of course, Wonder Woman, Catwoman, though I think Catwoman is not as popular as some of the others. But my point is, they're characters that stand out that we keep on, I'm like, oh my God, another Superman story. Why? But I'll go ahead and watch it. Why? Because Superman is a character that stands out. Spider-Man, are they doing another Spider-Man story? But we will watch it. Why? The character that was originally built stands out. Same as Batman, same as Arrow. Now they've done so many different Arrows. We keep watching it. Why? The character stands out. If you write an engaging character, a million stories can be told about this one character. But if you write a great story, there's really just that one way to tell the story. Do you see where I'm going? You see what the difference is? Yeah. So I am saying, yes, the story is king and our stories must be great. But the longevity of our stories is carried by our characters. Always, I think. Always. Lord of the Rings, same thing. Game of Thrones, which annoyed me so many times. I wanted to bash in my TV screen, but I kept coming back. Why? I could not leave my characters who had become my friends hanging. I had to finish the journey with them. So I came back, right? So, yeah, I think I've really stressed it on the importance of these characters. How do you know if you're creating an engaging character? So I think for me, some of the ways that I unknowingly created powerful characters, characters who I think are powerful and who I love, is watching and reading and seeing what is it that these characters have that has really attached me to them. And then going back to my characters and my story and my world, and asking myself, am I following the truths of these characters who have engaged me in my own telling, right? So I'll give a few examples. I already talked about Oliver Queen in Arrow. So I'm talking about the latest one, the one by Netflix. Oliver Queen in the Netflix, in Arrow being shown on Netflix, right? I mean, it's not done by Netflix, but it's being shown on Netflix. So what do I think Netflix might have picked up the last few episodes? Anyway, those are semantics. So Oliver Queen, Arrow. Why did I love? I loved this character because, okay, first of all, he's hot. But apart from him being hot, because there's many hot men on TV, right? TV, like they like to say, TV is for the beautiful. There's many hot men on TV, right? Though TV these days is not so much even just for the beautiful. TV is for those of powerful character. And again, this is where we have moved. TV is for those of powerful, enigmatic, charismatic, engaging character. Look at Breaking Bad, right? Like the main character there would probably never have been a main character of anything 10 years ago. But that's changing because we're really learning the psyche of the human being and what it is that makes us watch somebody. It's not how beautiful they look, it's do they engage us? Of course, hotness helps. I mean, like, eye candy. But do these characters engage us? Anyway, Oliver Queen. So Oliver Queen in Arrow, without spoiling the story for anybody who hasn't watched it, if you do like fantasy, go and watch this thing. At least the first four seasons, I want to say. 3 seasons are brilliant. And then they get lost somewhere there. But, side story. So why do I like Oliver Queen? I liked Oliver Queen because he had a powerful character arc, from a spoiled rich brat to somebody who went through something harrowing. And from the ashes, he rises and he mixes his past of wealth and privilege with the horror that he went through, which made him rethink his life and the future of where he wants to go. And I think that is really the biggest telling of how to build powerful characters. So who we are, who's this person when we meet them, and I really touched a lot on this in the first in part 1. Who is this person when we meet them? What is it that has happened to destabilize them from their current trajectory, which is their current life? I am sitting here and I am a writer. What is it that moves me from my current situation as a writer to something that is now going to pull me into a journey? Okay, say I am a writer and I decide I actually do want to write, but I want to write in a way that's really going to impact Kenya. And so I want to go into politics as a speechwriter from being a romance writer. So that would be the journey of this romance writer who became a speechwriter, right? Already I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting, So what is it that would have moved me from being a romance writer that shook me up or changed how I look at life for me to say, I feel like I can now use this talent and this superpower of mine of writing to mold a bit of the history of Kenya. And how do I get there? And what are the things that me being a romance writer informs about where it is that I want to go? You see, where do they clash? Where do they assist each other? And at the end of it, do I stay in my speech writing? Or do I say, you know what? I've realized that I can actually still impact Kenya from where I was as a romance writer, but then maybe add a bit more substance in there, because if I have 20,000 people who read my books, they might not follow me as a speechwriter because they're not interested in politics, but they will follow if I put that in my book. So I bring both of these things together. I am not removing myself as a romancer and saying, oh, please, just romance. How is that going to help anybody? And I am not giving up my quest to serve Kenya, but I have found a way to bring these two things together. And that is what we call a character arc. So maybe in the beginning, I was writing for the love of writing, but then I've always had this thing in me that I want to serve my country. I wasn't sure how to do that from here, right? And then something happens to startle me out of my comfort zone and to remind me that, you know what, there is a greater purpose that I feel I want to achieve. And I go set off on that, usually forgetting this. But by the time your character comes in arc, they have to bring this, the past, the future, and the present to a crossroad. And where those crossroads meet, that's usually where the purpose is of your character. That's usually the gem of your character. And that's usually the point at which they will now go forward in the new journey and in the new trajectory. So yeah, that's just an example of how you would form this brilliant character, again, based off the character of Oliver Queen from Arrow, being a rich guy, rich brat who really, he was not that happy. He thought he was happy, but he wasn't that happy. Just going along his life, like not really caring one way or the other. And then this tragedy happens and he's forced to face who he has been and who his family has been. And he's forced to face who they can be and who he can be in order to impact his world positively. But the journey from who he was to who he can be has to go through him facing himself and him overcoming that crisis that set him off, or that aha moment that set him off on this journey, and bringing all those things together in the end so that where that cross happens, he can find his new road and new trajectory into who he is now. And that becomes the character of Oliver Queen. And at any one time, we can borrow from his past, from where he wants to go, from the crises that happened to him, and from all the conflicts and all the resolutions that he has to walk through in order to find where he crosses and where his true path lies. And that's the end of part 2, finding your character.